So, some comments on leadership. Who's heard of Bob's definition, getting along to get ahead? Getting along to get ahead. And I keep thinking about that, and he is so damn smart. That explains EQ. I'm going to talk about the importance of influencing as a leadership skill today. Influencing is now big on the agenda, and that's what it simply is. You know, so talk about succinctness and being pithy, there it is. My definition, just a little bit more, getting better results through better relationships. So I'm more on the business side. I apologise for not being a psychologist, but I think I read people fairly well. But if you think about getting better results, leaders need to be strategic. What do I like at goal setting and KPIs? Can you create employee engagement, customer engagement, and you get the retention, the loyalty, the productivity, the performance? 4 functions of a leader. They've got to do strategic planning. There's no doubt about that. If you're a leader, what's the vision? What's the goals? What are the key result areas? Stakeholder engagement. All the surveys are showing customer engagement is critical to have a brand that attracts loyalty, repeat business, word of mouth. Employee engagement, absolutely. Retention, reputation, word of mouth, productivity. Service and operational excellence, aiming for 6 Sigma, get it right first time, every time. So let's get a team that's focused, well-led, motivated, and they get it right. And then we want to see results and a balanced scorecard of results, financials, non-financials. Now, who produces results? Is it the leader or the team? So we now open up that whole concept of great leaders should be judged by having high-performing teams. All right, and I'm going to talk about our new team assessment report later on. And who's ever seen this one? Many leaders and teams can be dysfunctional. Who in this room, if I can be a bit cheeky, because I've got high mischievous, who makes their living out of helping dysfunctional leaders and teams? There's me. That's what I do for a living. That gets me out of bed in the morning. Okay, now if you open up your 360 report, on the right-hand side, there's a guy called John Sample. The right-hand side, it should be 3 or 4 documents in. It's purple, red, blue, and it's called John Sample's 360. Everybody got that one? We're going to spend a few minutes on John, but what I want you to do is turn to page 3, and we introduce the PBC Hogan 360 leadership framework, which consists of self-management. Can you see down the bottom of the page? Then we have relationship management, working in the business, which is your job description, contract of employment. Then we have working on the business. So self-management is the self-awareness and the self-regulation, yes? You know, Daniel Goleman's 2 original points about EQ. Then we have relationship management, handling relationships, showing empathy. Then down here we have the motivation. What are our tasks and jobs? How well are we going to do them? And can we add a bit of value? Can we big picture and take people with us? So we love that model. And in a moment I'm going to slice and dice it so you know. So if you're thinking of how to apply the 360, you've got a fairly good understanding of what it does. Now, Sharon said I had to put this slide in because people want stats. All right, so here's a little bit of data. We've currently got 4,500 360 results from 35,000 raters. So when we talk about our data and what we've got there, the information we're giving you today comes from that database. Quite substantial. Okay, so what we do with if you now go to page 7 of this report, we then, and this is out of a scale of 1 to 7, with 7 being high. This is not a good 360, by the way. So we're giving you a bit of a guy that had a dark side and he was derailing. I'm going to explain all that in a moment when we get to the end. So the top half is what we call behavioural competencies, and in a moment I'm going to show you the bottom half are business competencies. So when I get feedback on our 360, because we use it at Melbourne Business School, MGSM, compared to other 360s, people say it's more business orientated, it's plain English, it's harder hitting, and the opportunities to improve are so easy to understand. So that's the feedback we get about the Hogan 360. So the behavioural competencies at the top. See, I've put EQ. Now, it's not strictly a measure of EQ, and I would never say that, but guess what we're drawing out here? We're getting the raters to assess the emotional competencies. That's what it is. You know, Daniel Goleman says you have a natural level of emotional intelligence, and that's what the Hogan EQ report measures, but the learned behaviours can become competencies through constructive habits. So we're measuring the emotional competencies up here, which we call behavioural. Then we go down the bottom, and what are we talking about here? Business competencies. So if you're a team leader, supervisor, manager, CEO, you've got to be good on the business competencies. And we're looking at the IQ, and I don't talk about IQ as being a Mensa test. It could be your street smarts. Some of the smartest CEOs I know never went to university, like take Katrina Noble from McDonald's. Never went to university, but she's a really smart, switched-on CEO. All right, now turn the page, and we then slice and dice. The left-hand side is the world of the manager. So you see Fred Bloggs scored 5.1. He also scored 5.1 on the right-hand side for being a leader. Does that make sense? So the manager one gets you hired. You came across well at the interview, you reference checked well, you seem to have your composure and capabilities all right, and you seem to have the experience and background and qualifications to do the job. Now, what got you to here is not going to get you to there, and I'll show you that quote in a moment. But when we work with a lot of organisations in the world, for example, BHP is a client, Coca-Cola, Westpac, most of their leadership competencies are on this right-hand side. Does that resonate with you, good folk? When you think about leadership competencies that organisations have got, they're mainly taking outstanding managers and saying, how quickly can we get you across to the right? Right? Because we want you to be more strategic with goal setting, use your influencing skills, motivate people, challenge poor performers, and build high-performing teams. So that's where our 360 measures people. The database, the benchmarking is showing we're stronger on the left than being stronger on the right. You get those benchmarks in the report. Okay, now we turn to page 17 and 18. And this is very important. This is a unique part of the Hogan 360. We haven't seen it in any other 360s. We have a table of items ranked here, and this table was designed 10 years ago when we studied about 30,000 comments where people had written, what's the best thing about that manager? So we went through all the text and came up with a table. That's the history. And what we do is ask people to pick 4 strengths out of a menu of 26 or 27 there, and we weight the votes. So can I have your eye contact? Someone picks this as your first vote, we give it 4 votes. Second choice, 3 votes. Third choice, 2 votes. Fourth choice, 1. So every rater is allocating 10 votes. So for Fred Bloggs, he got 21 votes for being action-oriented, 11 votes for being competitive and determined, 9 votes for working hard, having a good strong ethic, and he's a problem solver as well. Now, that ranking for him is then put against the group ranking, which is the company ranking. So we might go into an organisation and do 2360s on a management cohort. So we get their internal benchmark. Then we've got the global average, because the Hogan 360 is now a global product and we're getting lots of good data from around the world, and we're able to benchmark you against overseas managers, and including the Australians in that. Now, it's important to understand that table when I show you later on some beautiful research that my team have done, Mark and Ju, in putting together what do the 30 worst managers look like and what do the best 30 managers look like out of a database. You're going to fasten your seatbelts. It's got really good data. Now, why is Fred Bloggs such a bad manager? Turn the page. Why is Fred Bloggs unemployable, except by some reason he still kept his job? I've been coaching him for 5 years and he's a tough cookie to coach. All right, number 1 is be less aggressive. Well, that's a nice one to have up front. And number 2, improve your people skills. Number 3, be less moody, control your temper. 4, listen more, let others have their say. How bad is that? How bad is that? And what was the flip side previously? He's competitive and he's determined and he's a problem solver. That's what made him such a good project manager in the construction industry. But does he show any EQ? Does he make people feel valued? No way. Then you've got the written comment section, and the written comments are, tell us in your own words his strengths, his opportunities, and are there any derailers? All right? Are there any strengths being overplayed? So now you uniquely get that in this Hogan 360. All right? So that's important just to understand the construct and to set the scene for some of the research that is coming. Now, books. Who likes books? Anyone subscribe to book summaries, or you like to, yeah, I do, get abstract executive book summaries? And these are 5 of the books that I've been playing around with lately. I'm going to talk about that one. That's new, oldie goldie. That's new, that's an oldie goldie. But what does the literature say? I really like Marshall Goldsmith. I'm going to give you a second to read those points. Can you read those points at the back? Yeah. Yes or no? The higher your level of success, the more destructive your bad habits are. So you better understand your dark side and your derailers and manage them. Stopping a bad behaviour can be more productive than doing something right. You know the strengths, weaknesses argument? Do I play to my strengths or ignore my derailers? You know, he's saying no, do both. The higher up the ladder you go, it's about making other people winners. It's not about winning yourself. Isn't that a brilliant quote? I really like it. It's not about you anymore, it's about your team. So hence when we get to the team reports later on, we've got some really cool products there. And I like this one. We can't see in others what we can see so clearly in others. We can't see in ourselves what we can see. Who agrees with that one? Who's met people that were like that? Quick to point out other people's faults or weaknesses and have a look in the mirror, pal. Come on, what's going on? And he talks about the best method for identifying strengths and weaknesses is 360. Now, I first started using 360s about 15 years ago, a couple of big multinationals, and then it sort of died a little bit. It was a bit of a fad for a while, but it dropped. And my prediction is it's going to be fairly consistent and stable through to 2020. Why? Good companies, best practice over the next 5 years is, in a balanced scorecard, you're not just going to have your financial indicators and your operational indicators. You're now going to have some people metrics designed around 360s, employee engagement, employee turnover, and those. The case studies are just irrefutable now about the connection to your bottom line. Now, the thing we're doing is we're actually using these tools, but we're not making those managers accountable. It's not part of their REM, it's not part of their performance review, it's done for feedback only. I think by 2020, best practice companies are going to make that integrated into a KPI just as strong as financial, operational, safety, or some other measure. So it's coming. Daniel Goleman, who's seen his new book, Focus? It's good. Daniel Goleman's stuff is always worth a read. And what he talks about is the biggest leadership competency has to be self-awareness. The most important competency we need to focus on if we're going to change people is the self-awareness. How do you get self-awareness? You do your Hogans, you do your 360, you have your coaching, you get your EQ report, you get your judgment report, and out of all those assessments, we can really sit down and hold a mirror up to someone. Now, executives need to have this ability to sort out their own strengths and weaknesses and to build a strong team that complements them. Now, this is where he's critical of most organisations for not having self-awareness as an organisational competency. I must admit, I looked at 3 or 4 of our big clients and he's right. It's not there. So what a mistake we've made, not having self-awareness as a starting block to say this is your leadership competency. But the good news about working with Hogan, isn't that what we do? With Hogans and 360s and the coaching. Okay, that's good. The other thing that Goleman says is a leader understanding their values is critical to being an authentic leader. What are your values? Who are you? What values do you want to bring to your team if you are a leader? And he talks about values there. Well, guess what the Hogans can give us? Starts with an M. MVPI. You get a prize. Is that you, Karen? All right. We're going to give away some of Tomas's books. So by all means participate. Give me the answers, I'm looking for them. Okay. So I think that's true, the values. And he talks about 360, just like Marshall Goldsmith. 360 is the starting point for self-awareness. And you know what he says? What did you say about yourself? And what did everyone else say about you? Is there a gap? Were you overconfident? Were you about right? Were you too self-critical? And Goleman doesn't understand that. He just thinks the highest up the ladder you get, there's less self-awareness, but he doesn't understand that sometimes self-ratings can be a function of your Hogan personality. What do you reckon bold, colourful, mischievous people say about themselves? I'm good, I'm a legend, I'm perfect. And what do you reckon excitable, cautious and reserved say? Oh, I'm no good, I'm self-critical. And we'll show you the research later on. Now, some of the literature, Stephen Covey, who's read The Speed of Trust? It's a favourite book for many CEOs. Building trust is about building relationships. You get a loyalty, good brand, repeat business, retention, performance. It's with customers and it's with staff. And he says you've got to bring the right character to your relationships. Well, that's what we're measuring here. Then he says you've got to show competence, otherwise you'll never be trusted. And that's what we're building down here when we do the evaluation. The human brand, I've been following these guys for about 12 months now. It came out in Harvard Business Review mid-year last year. It was under the heading of influencing skills. Great leaders are great because they've got influencing skills. So just write that word influencing if you want, because we're going to show you some very interesting research later on. I think it'll knock your socks off. Now, He talks about people having brands, products having brands, and companies having brands, yes? Every one of you in this room has a brand. You know, what is your brand? What is it now? What would you like it to be? Right? And when we coach people, I'm asking my people these days, what's your brand? What do you want that brand to be when you retire? And people are saying something nice about you on a Friday night. Products have a brand. Colgate, Pepsi Cola, BMW, yes. Tiffany's, one of my youngest daughters. Tiffany, yeah, brands, okay. Won't tell you about that one. All right. And what they say is you've got to demonstrate some warmth. All right. Warmth is where you get the connection. So if people are going to connect, it's through some warmth, yes? Then guess what takes over? Competence. All right. You're building a builder to do a renovation on your home. What do you want? Competence. But what do you want? Peace of mind, a relationship. Is the person nice? So I want you to start thinking about warmth and competence as well. Jack Welch, we don't have to agree with everything Jack said, but he said it's really easy to assess a manager. Are they living the values and are they delivering the numbers? And our 360 does that. Can you see that? Are we living the values at the top with the behavioural competencies and are we delivering the numbers down the bottom? So I'm showing you this because over the last 10 years I keep looking at all the books because I keep teaching at business schools and I think their analysis fits so beautifully with the 360 model. Can you see that? In terms of measuring behavioural competencies and business competencies. All right, emotionally intelligent leaders. Can you get your white paper out, please, on the left-hand side? Now, can I just ask two of my team, Mark and Ju, to come out the front, please, very quickly? Quick. I just want to acknowledge that these guys have done, they can stand up, please. Put your hands together for these two brilliant people. The next two pieces of research that you're going to see comes from their hard work. Perspiration, inspiration, then they give it to me and I'm able to stand on a stage. So thank you for making my job easier. Now we have a case study. So if you open up, you see a little hard piece of paper. And this is a real live person. I was working with him just a week or two ago. So on this side, we have his EQ score, yes? Can everybody see his EQ score? He has scored 54%. And using the Hogan EQ report, it breaks down into awareness, self-awareness, 64, detection, reading other people, 50, self-regulating, 8. Is he self-regulating or is he excitable out of control? Influence, by God, he's determined and passionate and driven and he knows how to influence people. Expression, very good. Again, exciting people, motivating people. And empathy, his score was 0 out of 5 for empathy and he bummed out on a couple of other subscales too. So we go, okay, Fred Bloggs has got 4 great EQ scores and 2 low ones, yes? Turn the page and see what happened to his 360. Can you see that regulation and empathy, as measured in the EQ, were perfectly picked up in the 360? Yes or no? He doesn't listen, he talks over people. He's aggressive, he's a little bit, bordering on bully. He needs to communicate better, that's how you influence. He's got to show more empathy. Well, no wonder with a score of 0 out of 5 on the subscale. So I thought this just proved beyond doubt the power of putting someone through the Hogan EQ, having the 360 alongside it. Personality's not fate, but for Fred it is. At this stage, yes? So what's the coaching opportunity? Come on, let's sit down. Let's share this with your team. In 12 months' time, when we repeat the 360, that cannot be there, yes? And so what a powerful little case study, yes? You like that one? I think it's giving you some really good data. Okay, so EQ, the report is designed to measure emotionally competent behaviour. It's the broader search for multiple intelligences beyond the old IQ. Now, on page 3 of the report, you get to see the 6 elements that are measured. And 3 of these are intrapersonal, 3 of these are interpersonal. Now, we need to go to the research at the back of your report, so I'll give you the page. We're going to go to page 6. Now, I forgot to mention, because I was in a hurry here, I've gone back a couple of slides for those that want to know the data. 680 people who have done the Hogan 360 and have done the Hogan EQ. We're looking for correlations, yes? All right, so that's the database. And what we found is people who got a very good 360 and had a very high EQ, the strongest correlations were here. So for self-management, we got a very significant score of 0.265, relationship management 191, then a 078, a 064. So what did the high EQ, predictably, but luckily, illustrate? It's tied to the 360, largely around self-management and relationship management. It passes the test of common sense, yes? Can you see that? And it's really got not a lot to do with your job capacity, your work ethic, your skills, your time management, your delegation, setting KPIs. Make sense? That's where we're saying the cognitive stuff plays out. So a very strong correlation there, which we thought was good. Now, I want to show you some really cool stuff. This freaked me out. I just loved it here. Go to page 11. You know, and sometimes it's my gut feel that goes searching for the data, and then I've got science and practice, and it all comes together. That's a pretty cool combination. Now, I want you to look at the second box, which is the manager ratings. Can everyone see on page 11? You've got what did the manager, where did the manager rate someone high on a 360 and high on the scales, the 6 scales in the EQ? Who can pick the one that went through the roof? You're looking at the second table, which is the manager's ratings. Where did we get a plethora of high ratings? Hey? Influencing. So when a manager is rating another manager, could be team leader, supervisor, they just say, wow, it's those influencing skills I love. I want those influencing skills. That's high EQ, high 360. All right? So what does a manager want out of another manager? They principally want your ability to influence. What's Bob Hogan's definition of leadership? Getting along to get ahead. It's your influencing skills. Can you create engagement? Can you set KPIs and goals? And through your relationships. So I thought that was rather profound. And I'll go back here. Oh, that's the boss loves the influencing. And then what have we got here? Go back one page. Sorry, I'm jumping all over the shop. And at the top of page 11, when we put all of the raters together, which is the final column. Can you see the final column? What are the 2 scales from the 360 that attract the highest EQ scores? It's in the last column. Resilience and people skills. So what's the resilience refer to? I'm self-aware and self-regulating. I'm not having hissy fits or temper tantrums or being aggressive or rude. I'm a stable, composed, resilient person, yes? Absolutely the single biggest factor that triggers a high score. Can you see that? What's second? People skills. Carl Albrecht, who's written a book called Social Intelligence, just your social awareness and situational awareness, he says you can judge any manager on a scale, toxic to warm. So think of the managers you've been working with. How many are toxic? Anyone had a toxic one? And how many are warm? Role models. Yes? So this is what the people skills is picking up on. So, do you like that research? Yeah. I think it's pretty damn good. Pretty good. Okay, so what's the manager looking for? The manager, first of all, is looking for communications. All right, that's in the appendix at the back. Communications came highest. Remember, the manager is looking for someone who can influence, yes? Hence the significance of communications. You got that one? Who's ever seen good managers that communicate well? Who's ever seen some that don't do it well? They don't engage, they don't share, they don't... All right, then you want your people skills, your resilience. What do the peers want? The peers want resilience, be stable and composed, don't be melodramatic and temperamental. And they want the people skills, some soft people skills. Are you ready for the reports? What do team members want? What do team members want? Resilience, come to work composed, Don't spit the dummy or throw the toys out of the cot. Give me your people skills, make me feel valued, so I'm going to give you a high engagement score. And my integrity. I've got to be a credible person. Just like Tamar said, no favouritism, no double standards, no cutting corners, no dishonesty. Isn't that amazing? That's what team members want from a team leader. All right, now the second piece of research, and again, I better acknowledge Mark and Ju. I'm only doing it because I think their recognition scores are high. Might mean they go without a pay rise for the next 2 years. We'll see how we go. So the research paper number 2, what we did, let me show you the data. Oh, by the way, do you like this guy? That's the derailer. He's the bad one, and this is the saint. So we're going to show you the good, the bad, the ugly, the ones who are... So again, I've got to give you the boring detail around the data. So here we go. We looked at 1,603 managers who did their Hogan 360 in 12-13, and we picked out the best and worst. The highest 30 and the worst 30. So basically, if you look at a bell curve, what have I done? Taken the bottom 2% and the top 2%. You with me? Can I tell you this? The top 2 are unbelievably good results. The top 2%, they're just, I wish we had more leaders like that in Australia. The bottom 2, DCM. They're that bad. They shouldn't be on the payroll, don't come Monday. All right. So the key findings are, both categories were hard-working and knowledgeable. Is that a surprise? Even the bad manager, you know, Fred, the supervisor in the warehouse, he knows a lot of stuff. He's pretty hard-working. But the best managers are more people-oriented, positive role models, have good leadership skills, are motivational and visionary. The best managers need to improve their workload management and challenge poor performance. The worst managers need to improve their people skills, blah, blah, blah. Let's have a look at the data. I'm on page 3. Now remember when we looked at Fred Bloggs, who had a bad 360 before? We showed you the tables, yes? Remember the 4 votes, 3 votes, 2 votes, 1? So what my team did was pull all the stats together and rank them by looking at all the votes. You with me? So this time it's 30 managers in the good category, 30 in the worst. So what is a good manager doing? Hard working. Now I don't want to get into debate about work-life balance and so on, but it is a fact that some of the most admired senior executives do have an incredibly good work ethic. Just like in sport, I guess, if you want to get to the top. But secondly, they have people skills. Thirdly, they've got the right attitude. Fourth, they've got knowledge. Now, if you've got pen, put 1 and 4 together by hooking them together. I tend to say that's the IQ I'm looking for, 1 and 4. All right, we know from years of doing this, that's what to look for. 2 and 3 is the EQ. Having the good people skills and the positive attitude. All right. Now we go down, number 6, they're a positive role number, 13, they're motivational, 14, they're visionary, and it goes down. Now, look at the worst manager's strengths. We know about the knowledge and the hard working, but where does good people skills end up at? Can anyone see? A long way down. Where does positive role model, leads by example, go? It's not even on the page, it's 26th. These guys are just not role models. They're not very nice people. What about motivational and inspiring others, which was 13th? That comes down to 25. Can't motivate people, can't give people energy and purpose. And then I've got visionary, which goes from 14th to 24th. Is that interesting data? You know, what does a great guy look like? What does a bad guy? Now let's look at the opportunities. And for great managers, if you've got some great managers, walk in and just say, I know what you need to work on. And they're going to say, how do you know that? You're going to say your workload efficiency because there's too much on your plate, and challenge those poor performers. And they're going to go, how did you know that? I do it everywhere. All my clients. And the senior execs go, yep, that's my 2 big issues. Too much on my plate, need to get better organised, and I've got to make time to challenge those poor performers. So there it is. Now, what's the number 1 issue confronting our bad managers? They don't have people skills. And it's the number 1 opportunity voted by their direct reports, their peers, their managers. All right, so how important is people skills? And we know from the EQ report, people skills also triggers the high EQ report. So if we did EQs on these guys, how do you reckon they'd come out? Not too good. I don't reckon they'd be very flash. Look at number 2, communicate better. That's way down here. Communicate better. Remember that word, influencing? How do they influence people if they're not communicating? These people basically are not relationship management people. They just want to come to work, leave me alone, bit of perspiration, I'll do my job, then I'll go home. So that's what I'm seeing. Time management, some of them are not very efficient or organised. Make it happen and show leadership on issues. They're not decisive. That could be someone with a high cautious profile. Just, I can't get things done. And then they've got some toxic stuff. Be less aggressive was in here, whereas be less aggressive was way down there for the good managers. All right, interesting data? Very, very interesting data, yes.
Actually, Peter, it's interesting that the opportunities for the best managers are still around generally, really, aren't they?
Takes on too much, delegate more, yeah, give more feedback. But that number 3 is a big one for a lot of our clients. Who's also finding that out there in the corporate world or government or private? It's a big issue. Staff don't like having a bad apple. It pulls the morale down. And managers are too busy to deal with it. They don't really like having difficult conversations. All right, now research paper number 3, you don't have to get it out because I'm not going to refer to it. But it is the 3rd research paper. It was done a couple of years ago by PBC and Hogan in America. And the stats, here we go for those that want the data. 476 managers that had 360s and Hogans. And the raters were from managers, peers, direct reports, and self. So I'm showing you now, were there correlations between 360s and Hogans, in particular looking at the different perspectives of the different stakeholders. Does that make sense? What is a boss looking at? What are peers thinking? What do reports want? And what did self say? The boss ratings. The bosses really liked the ambition, colourful, and power. This is what the boss wants from a manager. Is that interesting? So if you talk about the private sector, for example, that would translate to set goals. Where's your one-page business plan? Are the KPIs crystal clear? Are your people engaged? Their roles and responsibilities are aligned? All right? And what do bosses not like? For God's sake, make a decision. Don't be so task-focused and individualistic, and don't be off doing your own thing. Interesting, the manager's perspective, yes. And remember, in the EQ analysis, what was the manager really primed up for? Influencing skills. So add influencing to this, yes? If you've got the influencing skills, the boss is going to say you've got great EQ, and then out of your Hogan, they're the ones I'm looking for. So set the vision and engage people with your influencing skills. Does that make sense? And then you're on the path to being a great leader. Oh my God, what do peers want? What do peers want? We want prudence. Just do your job conscientiously, will you? Cross your T's and dot your I's and don't be impulsive or risk-taking. Security. Measure twice, cut once. Be sensible. Don't be risk-taking or naughty. And then cautious. Yeah, make proper decisions. Do it conscientiously. Be collaborative. Ask for input. And peers do not like sociability. There goes your happy hour. Colourful, you're too melodramatic for me. And imaginative. Sorry, we don't need creative ideas. So it's an amazing thing to think about. A manager these days has to be a lion to the boss and a church mouse to the peers. And have many of these people got the EQ to understand the different needs? Imagine coaching someone. Right, in front of your boss, be a tiger. In front of your peers, be a pussycat. Wow, that's going to be a bit of a challenge. How do I do that one? And now, what do the reports want? Yes? Reports want prudence. I want a boss who's ethical and reliable. Does it by the book. Good. Affiliation. Are you a people person? Are you going to make me valued? And you're going to make me feel good. I want to be engaged. And power. Come on, boss, you set the KPIs. You tell us what the big picture is. All right? And reports do not like, or they hate the explosive, volatile leader. They hate it. And they don't like that aesthetic. I think some of the artists have got that little temperament in them as well. I don't know. And I know there's lots of aesthetic people in the room. Put your hands up. Come on, yeah. I live with one, so I know what it's like. All right. Now, the reports do not like excitable. I mentioned that one. Oh, look at this guy. That bloke's about to blow up, isn't he? Hey, he's going to have a hissy fit. Now, the interesting thing that came out of the data, who sees excitable? First, the reports see it, mostly. The peers pick up a little bit. 9 times out of 10, the manager doesn't see it happening. Who's ever come across that? You're picking it up, you know. So some of these managers are really shrewd, aren't they? They're sort of kicking down a little bit, you know, while telling the boss it's all good. No dramas. So the poor old reports, yes. That's why they don't like that excitable. The self-ratings. So what did individuals say about themselves in the 360? Now, remember Daniel Goleman earlier said, you've got to look at self-ratings and other ratings, yes? That's out of his new book, Focus. And this is the work that Tomas is pushing too, the self-awareness. Who's got the mirror? Who looks in the mirror? And I don't think Daniel Goleman's aware of this because he probably hasn't bumped into all the Hogan research. But does it surprise you, ambition, bold and power have an inflated sense of their scores? No. So they're the ones we need to work with. Yes, look, your score's not quite as good as you thought. Can we get you up from the balcony and down onto the dance floor and have a real chat about what's going on? And guess who had the lowest scores? Oh my God, don't we feel sorry? Self-critical, hard markers, and my glass is half empty. And those 3 components make up 3 of the 5 factors that constitute what theme or trend? Moving away. I need to move away because I want to get jobs done by myself and I need to recharge my batteries. So they struggle a little bit with their energy levels and being accessible. So more insights there, yes? Here's my final slide.